I want to know what it feels like, first of all, because you've been one of his loudest, most vocal supporters throughout his entire tenure. Okay. You're the one that's out there, like through thick and thin, his ride or die. Like you got his back no matter what. What does it feel like right now? Like knowing that he's not letting these facts come out that we want to know about.
Well, Shawn, that's what we were talking about yesterday. But now I know the answers. So now I'm not as upset as I was. And so it's kind of hard to hold that thing in. But let me just in general explain something to people. I first covered Jeffrey Epstein when it first started hitting just some local papers and things and rumbles and sources I had about one of the many intelligence agency blackmail honeypot operations. Okay. And every major government does, the Chinese, the Israelis, the British, the EU, the US, the Russians, and they all have their own MOs. And I'm not just experienced myself. I read a lot of books about it, read a lot of guests. I mean, I've interviewed former head counterterrorism of CIA. Again, just yesterday, I've interviewed many times. I've interviewed the former head of psychological warfare of the Defense Intelligence Agency, CENTCOM. I mean, I've probably interviewed 200, 300 experts. I can't even keep track of it. And so I have a wide-ranging understanding about this. I know exactly who Epstein really worked for. So last Sunday, 2 Sundays ago, 13 days ago, they put out this Justice Department memo that says Epstein killed himself. There was no blackmail operation. He didn't have accomplices. There was no basic human trafficking. And I went, wait a minute. Ghislaine Maxwell, his partner in crime, whose dad was a famous honeypot runner for Mossad, MI6, and KGB of all things. And that's like mainstream news 20 years ago. They threw him off a boat to get rid of him. And just like Epstein, these billions of dollars drain out of his bank accounts, owning a lot of the media in the UK when he dies. He wasn't the real guy. He was the front guy for like a specter. And you watch the James Bond movies based on Ian Fleming, who was high-level OSS MI6. It's like number 2 at one point. He later to give interviews in the 60s for he goes, no. Spectre is how it really works. We didn't call it Spectre, but he goes, there's criminal corporate organizations that have got people in the KGB, MI6, CIA, you name it, and they go recruit our agents, and they have their own criminal organization out of that. He said, that's how the world really works. Well, that is actually how it works. And so now this big epiphany with this historian with a few days ago with Tucker Carlson that's gone viral, and the guy is really smart, but he explains to people the real intelligence operatives are corporate. They have been forever. Before there were government intelligence agencies, there were the British East India Company and the Knights Templar and, stuff thousands of years ago. And your most high-level people are corporate, and they're not the CIA, the Mossad, the FBI, the, MI6. They are these corporate people that have feet in all of that. And so they call them an asset of different agencies, but the real people aren't in one actual agency where there's oversight. They're in it all. Remember that cheesy movie? It's really good, actually. 1980s, Romancing the Stone. I've ever seen it. But they're trying to. They got this big emerald. They're running around in South America, and there's this guy chasing him, and he's a general, and he's an intelligence head, and he's a mayor, and he's a airline. He's got all the passports. And so people keep getting confused, going, "Oh, is he CIA? Is he Mossad?" No, real operatives aren't in any group. They've just got the codes and the authorization as operatives to all the groups. So. And we've learned in our lawsuits, them against us, like all the people running ops against me are FBI, CIA, geospatial, Booz Allen. That's the real stuff. So the question is, was he an intelligence operative? That's been known for decades. He was just a big manager for all these groups and kind of like the broker or the air traffic controller of the maitre d'. He doesn't own the restaurant. He doesn't own the hotel, but he's the face. He's the guy. He's the guy in the middle of it. And then Ghislaine Maxwell took over the main MI6, KGB, Mossad, real human trafficking operation that took down the UK government, put them into the globalist system. And he ran that. That's come out. He got buried in Mount of Olives, military honors, Mossad.
Yeah.
So when he dies, right after that, his daughter takes over. And from all our research, she was, again, not Mossad, not MI6, not KGB. She took over the files, which is even the news she got from her dad, as that liaison for the corporate groups that sit at the center of that. And he worked for her. came out in court cases that he would complain that he had to have sex with up to 6 girls a day, just priming all these young girls they got at trailer parks, 13, 14, 15, just to vet them and train them for the men. So he was like a super gopher. So he wasn't high level in the power structure. He was just like somebody at the best restaurant in Austin or New York, knows all the Hollywood people and all the politicians, and everybody shakes their hand because they give him a good table, but he's not part of the elite. And so it wasn't just intelligence agency blackmail. You know, you have Bill Gates heavily involved with him, and it's come out using Epstein to try to target and blackmail the heads of Harvard, the heads of science divisions, the heads of MIT, so that Bill Gates could get all the scientists under him so he could control that agenda, which he's well known to do to a great extent. And so I did my research on Trump, and I know Trump. It was in all the socialite things. Everybody knows Trump's MO, what he likes, big bombshell. I met Melania. I'm like, you know, even though she's older, I'm like, I met her like 9 years ago too. I mean, scary hot, electricity shooting on her eyes, even more beautiful than what you see on TV. It's like intimidating. And I mean, I've never run to women intimidate me. The hotter, the more powerful, I'm like, whoa, I like that. I mean, she's like intimidating. I mean, one of the only women I've ever been intimidated by. Like, so pretty, like scary looking. I mean, guys that like intimidating, bombshell, 6 foot tall women don't want to screw kids.
So what's the connection between?
Well, it just goes on and on. Roger Stone's known him 50 years. Roger Stone's a confidant to multiple presidents, Richard Nixon, you name it. And Rogers admitted this. He's been in the New York Times in the 90s. I've talked to him privately. He says, you know, you can do it all, but you can say it. Trump would be married, and he never lied that he was a playboy, and the wives were kind of... And Trump would need beards, not that he was gay, but a beard to go out to dinner with his girlfriends. Supermodels is his thing.
What does that mean? A beard to go?
A beard is usually a man is married to a woman, he's gay, but he don't want people to know that, so he has a fake wife.
Okay.
Like Hollywood have famously beards. With Trump, it's a beard with Roger would go out with Trump and his girlfriend so that Trump to be out with his girlfriend, no one know who his girlfriend was. And I remember saying, hey, when I was checking in to see if I was going to endorse Trump, really 10 years ago, even before it was announced, because I do my vetting, I said, hey, I read all these articles. Because back then he wasn't a political guy, so they were all nice about him. And I read, like, you were the earliest meetings with him and Melania, all this. And he goes, yeah, no, that's it's true. That's what I would do. Because I'd already done stuff with him and the Republicans and stuff. And he knew that I was, you know, a playboy too. Roger's well known for that. And, you know, he was buddies with Nixon, you know, Nixon's Chinese mistress, was a Chinese agent, but Chinese mistress. And so that Roger's known for that. And, you know, not procuring kids and stuff, just being a go-between with, you know, hot chicks and presidents. And he's, at one point, was the top lobbyist in D.C., making like $100 million a year, too. So there's that. And but he's an American patriot, totally. Helped bust Russian espionage stuff in the 80s, everything. But long story short, I did my vetting, but before any of this pedophile stuff came out or any of this, there was never any evidence of it. And it's like, yeah, Donald Trump likes bombshell supermodels 6 feet tall. So the opposite of what a pedophile wants. They want the power and the control and to wreck somebody. They're intimidated. They're a little creepy guy that, you know, no one will be, I mean, no, I have zero attraction to even young women. You know, when I was 16, I like 16-year-old girls. Now look like kids. You know, so that's a process of maturity.
So what's the connection between Epstein and Melania?
Here's what I'm saying is, I did my homework on Trump, okay? And there is zero connection to Epstein. He's not on the plane to Zorro Ranch. He's not on the plane to Little St. John's that all these world leaders are, and Bill Gates and the rest of them, hundreds and more of them. They were socialites in New York and in Palm Beach. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talked about this too. That's how it is when you're rich. And so people look the records up. When his plane was broken twice in the 90s with his children, because Epstein took photos, it's Trump with his wife and kids on the plane. They flew down twice to Palm Beach where they both live. That's it. That's the connection. And then you see Trump at a socialite, you know, party, a New York party, and you see Epstein come in and they're talk for a second. They're shooting. There's all these, look like 30-year-old women, 35-year-old women, gorgeous. And they're all over Trump. And Trump's like, look at this. That's what Trump's doing. A bunch of like, you know, intimidating, you know, badass, really sexy, 1,000 horsepower women. That's what I like personally. So I get it. A red-blooded person would. What I'm getting to here is Shawn is trying to explain the psychology and moving on from this. So I've done my vetting. I've done my research on Trump. And there's nothing there. There's none of that. I support all the policies. I think he's a great guy. And then all of a sudden, we have this giant train wreck 13 days ago of him having a surrogate say it's all closed, don't go there. I come out Monday, I say, this is Trump. There goes, you're a traitor, it's Bondi screwing up. The next day he comes out and says, no, I want it shut down. Shut up, you're not my supporter if you talk about it. And so that's when I freaked out and said, there's no evidence of this. Why are you acting like that? But since then, I figured it out. Sorry, I'm ranting.
If you like this content, please like, please subscribe. That'll help us be able to get more sponsors so we can pump out more episodes.
Guys, look at me. Shawn needs you. I know he looks like tough and cool, but he like cries a lot. He goes, if I don't get a Slim Jim membership, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay rent. I'm like, Shawn, you have another job. You're just spending too much money on, those tight shirts. Cut your shirt budget. But yeah, like and subscribe.